Well, welcome everybody. This was an idea that the mayor and Mary Dean thought was a good idea to have us come and speak about the title flats tonight. So similar to the meeting we had on June 24th, I'll give you a quick presentation. I'm going to introduce one of our partners on the project, a company called Entact. They'll tell you about the Tidal Flats project, and then hopefully we won't have too many questions, maybe one or two, and then both Entact, the PSR team, we actually have the team from the Deep here as well, Connecticut Deep, so if you'd like to ask some questions to them, and we have our PR team here as well, if there's anyone from the media that wants to talk to our PR team. So that seems to be a little easier way for us to keep doing these things because we want to give everyone as much information as we can. So we'll start with the first slide. So that's the famed Point Stratford. Obviously, everyone knows that as the Army engine plant. We'll go to the next slide. So just to introduce the principals again for people who weren't here on the 24th, I'm Jim Cabrera. Ted and I are co-managing partners. This is my partner, Ted Lane. He secured the property under contract 12 years ago at this point, and I came on and partnered with Ted at the end of, or in the middle of 21 to work to closing on the property. We closed on the property April 2nd of 2024, and we're in our planning stage now. So. Let me see. So, brief remediation update. So remember, if you were at our last plan, what we told you we were going to do was basically remediate the buildings, demo the buildings, and bring in fill. So those were the three things we said we were going to do. We don't know what we're building yet. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but there'll probably be one or two questions. What are you building? Which we don't have an answer to. But that's what I said we were going to do, and that's what we're doing. So the abatement of the hazardous material in the buildings are underway. The demo buildings are underway. We're starting south of Sniffins. You probably see a lot of the activity going on there if you drive down Sniffins Lane. The fill import has started. We're bringing in 1 million tons of fill to bring the site to elevation where we can build something on it. That's a FEMA requirement, and that's underway. There'll be future meetings that once we figure out what we'd like to build, and we can bring it to the town and talk about that. But tonight is really about the Tidal Flats, which is a real important part of this overall project, and something that I think everyone's going to be very happy with. So the history of the Tidal Flats. So the Tidal Flats, I can't show you a picture of it, but basically it's right out in front of the Army engine plant. There was a public hearing. There was a lot of controversy over it. Ultimately, December of 2019, the record of decision was signed. And in May of 21, that was the major impediment to transferring the property, and that was basically delivered. We signed an environmental services cooperative agreement. It's something called an ESCA, because the Army always needs to have some sort of name, and we can never remember them all. But an ESCA is what we have that we're working under, and that's with the Department of Defense. And in September of 24, we signed an agreement with them to execute the Tidal Flats. So. The headline in the newspaper was Stratford details the first big piece of the Army engine plant cleanup, and I know Mayor Hoydick is here somewhere, but I'll give her her quote. One of the most significant obstacles to this project moving forward has been getting agreement between the federal and the state authorities on a plan for environmental remediation of contamination left behind from the plant in the mud flats along the Houstonic River. We have that now. So that was in 2019. So we're moving forward. So just again, brief explanations, a lot more technical of this, but I'll try to keep it at 30,000 feet, and you guys can ask questions to Entact after, if you'd like. So the Army is responsible for remediating the tidal flats, and that involves dredging of over 230,000 tons of sediment. PSR, along with the Army Corps of Engineers, ran a competitive bid process, and we selected Entact as our contractor to remediate the tidal flats. PSR will accept the lightly impacted sediment from the tidal flats on the upland of our property, and that will all be placed under an engineered cap, which is the solution that we've come up with Connecticut Deep in our targeted brownfield remedy. This will reduce truck traffic in the area by about 10,000 trips. So we think that's a pretty significant thing. And the Army would not have been able to do this project if we didn't decide to partner with them on it. So the Department of Defense is responsible for the remediation, and the Army Corps of Engineers has developed the remediation plans alongside of Entact. And Entact has a project engineer called Arcadis. Again, just as the Upland project, where we're using Clean Earth, the largest fill provider in the United States. North Star is the largest demo contractor in the United States. Entact is the largest private environmental services company in the country, and their engineer, Arcadis, is one of the largest engineering firms. What percentage of the total? We can answer that after. I don't have that off the top of my head, but whatever is not likely impacted goes off-site to a material landfill. So PSR's role in this, what are we doing up here? Why are we talking about it? So our role is just to help organize the whole thing. Like I said, it's not the project, it's not PSR, it's not the Upland project. The tidal flats are a separate project that's owned by the government, responsibility of the government. We're just facilitating it, and we've done that with Entact. So that's kind of where we are on the project. You guys might say, well, geez, you just having some guy up here in a suit watching this big project. The answer is no. So the people that are really watching the project are the Department of Defense, the Army Corps of Engineers, HUEMPA, who is the contractor for the government. So we have an on-site person, Rick Barlow, who's been at the site for about 40 years. So he knows just about everything that's going on at the plant. So that's the government employee. Regulatory oversight, we have the EPA, we have the Connecticut Deep, and we have Kevin Neary here and Ray Fregon here. We also have a deep person on the site as well. So they have a presence. We put a trailer there for them. We also have the town of Stratford, who's very involved and come out to the site very often. And we have a company called BL, who are environmental engineers. The state of Connecticut sometimes uses an outsourced program as well. And so we have our LEP, licensed environmental professional, that does a lot of things on the site, puts in the plans and things like that, and works very well with Ray and Kevin's organization. We also have legal compliance, accounting compliance, because it's a government contract. So Cohn Resnick's Government Services Group is our accounting firm. Greenberg Traurig is the largest government contracting law firm in the country, and Shipman & Goodwin is one of the largest in the state of Connecticut. So there are lawyers. So again, trying to build, it's a big project, very important. We're trying to have the best contractors work on it. And so with that, I'd like to basically bring Brady Bonstead, who's the project executive for Entact, up to give you a story about it.
Hi everyone, I'm Brady Bonstead. I'm the project director for Entact. So I want to tell you a little bit first about Entact. Entact is the largest provider of environmental remediation in the country. We work coast to coast. We've been in 48 states. We've been in business about 34, just about 35 years now. We've done projects with the EPA, with Connecticut Deep. This is a familiar world for us. We've partnered with Arcadis. Arcadis is a large design firm and engineer nationwide. They've done over 200 sediment remediation projects over the country. They do a lot for the Department of Defense and the Army Corps as well. So when we picked up this project, it was at 95% design. So what we helped do was we partnered with Arcadis to finalize this design. It had been 5 years since that design was touched. So we updated it to current conditions, current regulations, and we're working with them. They'll become the engineer of record. So all the project closeout oversight will be done by Arcadis. Entact, we are a contractor. We self-perform on this project. We'll do over 95% of the work ourselves. The guys you see out working there are our operators, our laborers, our equipment, we own the equipment. Some of the pictures here, some of the dredge equipment that you'll see out there. So we will be installing, I'll get into some of the technicals once we get out there, but sheet piling, dredging, material management as a whole will all be in-house within Entact and overseen and stamped by the design engineer of Arcadis. So a little more of the history of the Tidal Flats. Jim kind of went back to 1995 was when the Army engine plant was placed on the BRAC list. The decision document came out in 2021, so there's a long gap there of the facilities sitting there essentially, right? And so this timeline is kind of showing the acceleration that we're picking up at this point. When we came on board in April of last year with DSR, officially in July, we immediately got to work on that design throughout the ESCA process. So we spent the last 6 months or so finalizing that design and working with the regulatory agencies to make sure everything we had designed and what we intended to do, our means and methods, would be approved by each of those agencies. We've received final design approval of our 100% design in the end of February, so rather recently. And then immediately following in March, we started to mobilize to the project. Starting March, we had some equipment show up into the parking lots. Just in the last 2 weeks, we've been out in the water, starting to set up our monitoring, our controls, and some of the equipment, which you'll see about. Big picture, this is kind of the timeline which we intend to execute this project. So, like I said, we had the design approved in February. March, we have a lot of submittals. I believe we have 16 plus plans we've been writing that are all reviewed by the EPA, DEEP, the state, the town, pretty much everybody else we can think of. So late March, we did start the sheet piling process about 2 weeks ago. The first thing we did was we had to build the dock so that we can actually execute this project. We'll show you that dock in a minute. The dock is in. We're starting the sheet pile process. We should be dredging. We're aiming for May at this point, and that should be complete by June of the next year. As Jim said, we have over 200,000 tons of material we have to pull out of Tidal Flats, so we'll be there for a while. Right after we finish dredging, as we go, we'll be capping those areas with a clean import sand. That sand will follow our dredging activity. We're restoring it to within a foot of its current condition, and then following that, we'll be restoring any of the tidal saltwater marshes that we have on the site. This is a layout basically of the whole Tidal Flat. So, pointer, I'm sorry. So we've divided this into the West Bay and the East Bay. The bays are divided basically by the causeway, which is the existing plateau coming out of the coastline there. We'll be using that causeway for the transport of a lot of our material. We've set up a dock towards the end of the causeway off on the left side. That will be our main dock for the West Bay. The East Bay has a dock down below off the coast. So essentially the first thing we're doing is setting up our turbidity controls, which is the dashed red line that goes across the whole bay. That has a turbidity curtain. It's a floating barrier with a curtain that's anchored down to the ground to prevent any sort of turbid water. Outside of there, we have 4 turbidity monitors that are placed in the river. Kind of hard to see. One is way upstream. There's 2 at the work zone, and then there's 1 farther down with just outside of the navigational channel. Those are telemetric. They're live reporting every 20 to 30 seconds or something along those lines. We get alerts if we have any kind of turbidity, and then we've done background monitoring, so we know what we're seeing right now. When we're within 30 NTUs, which is the measurement of turbidity, we'll get alerts on our phone to know if something's going on. If we need to watch something, if a boat went by, we need to know that. We'll document that. So we have live feedback with anything going on with turbidity. Once those controls are placed, we started the sheet pile. The sheet pile is a steel sheet. It's going about 15 to 20 feet or so long. They're being embedded down into the tidal flat material. That's the blue kind of squiggly line that you see there. That is basically being used as a tide control. The tidal flats get so low at low tide that we actually can't float dredge equipment there in a lot of the area. So what the steel sheeting is doing is keeping high tide in. So what we'll be able to do is float throughout the whole day. That was a big schedule pickup for us. If we could only work the tides, we could only work a couple hours a day with dredge equipment. So the tidal flats will let us work, or the sheet pile will let us work throughout the whole day, which cut the whole schedule to 4 to 6 months, depending on when we were able to start. So basically, once the sheet pile's in, the sheet pile is all the way down to the ground. That acts as a turbidity barrier for any sediment down towards the bottom. Then we have the turbidity curtain above that floating for any suspended sediments. And then we have our 4 monitors to monitor all of our turbidity controls. That dredge material will come up, for example, on the West Bay. We load it into a material barge. The barge is just basically a large floating dumpster that will be pushed over to our dock, where it'll be unloaded with a material handler and placed in a sealed bed off-road truck. That truck will come down the causeway into a sediment processing area, which we call a spa. That gets dumped into the spa, where we treat it with Portland cement. Basically, all we're doing there is taking that material and kind of solidifying it. The tidal flat material is muddy, grainy, it's mud. It's a mud flat. So mixing that with Portland allows us to be able to handle that material. We have 4 different waste categories within the tidal flats. So we have each of those different is either a different disposal outlet that those materials go to based on historic testing that the Army Corps has done. So material will come in. We have designated spas, depending on which category material it is. Certain impacts of material needs to be segregated and stay in a certain spot. So down below, you can kind of see the spas. Sorry, it's not showing up that great. So once it goes in the spa, it's treated with the Portland cement. It will then get loaded into an on-road truck, where it will go to a licensed and permitted disposal facility. And then there is material that Jim talked about, that will be treated and placed on the upland parcel as well, as a part of the fill for the FEMA floodplain. We have, was that? All of it will be. So even the material that's going out will be treated. That helps us solidify the material so we don't have any drips, leaks, or anything with on-the-road trucks. And then for even on site, it helps us get us to a geotechnical satisfying material that we can use to place and compact and make a good solid working surface. Like I said, we are capping this area, so the capping material is going to be clean import sand from a local quarry. That material will be brought into the north lot, which you see down in the left corner there. Based on site logistics, we'll be stockpiling some of that material there, loading it up, bringing it out to the causeway, or bringing it out to the east dock, where we'll be putting that in a clean material barge out to a float plant, where it's then placed. All of our dredge equipment has GPS on it, so we know where we're cutting. Our depths are between 1 to 4 feet, depending on what the contamination was showing based on the previous testing done. And then when we come back to restore, we'll be using that GPS again to restore that back to existing levels. Really, that's kind of it in a nutshell. This outline you see here, this black line that kind of comes in, There's been no all testing. Our dredge limit is within more of the parameters of the perimeter, and same with the East Bay. And then we'll be sorting those by various disposal category as we go.
So what we're seeing now, like from the mainland, the steel bird, that we call.
That's the sheet pile, correct.
That's to make a physical barrier tied in.
That's correct. Yes.
And so it's going to extend from shoreline to bird.
Sorry, the mouse doesn't show up there. That's correct. That's the blue line. It comes across. It's kind of squiggly. So it does go across each bay. It's anchored by the park on this side. Then it goes up to the causeway. It doesn't actually intercept into the causeway. We're able to bridge that with a physical barrier to block water. So we didn't want to affect the causeway. Has existing marine mattresses that we didn't want to disturb. So we drive the piles right up to the causeway marine mattress and then bridge over that so we don't disturb anything there. It's essentially, yes, because there is a turbidity curtain across that cove. I mean, the question was is boat traffic going to be restricted into the tidal flat area? So right now, the tidal flats usually don't have much more than 4 feet of draft or water within there. Low tide, it's all mud. There is no water, so we really don't see much boat traffic in there. And based on where the sheet pile is, it's well outside of the navigational channel. Yeah.
Do you have to replace the dredging material, and if so, what?
The dredge material, yes, we're backfilling or capping with import sand material. That sand is imported from a local quarry. It will be placed within 1 foot of current existing grade. It's just below existing so that natural sediment can come in and fill in those ebbs and flows as well. Yes?
Do you have an idea of the 342,000 cubic yards of dredging, approximately how much is staying property owners going off-site?
We will run those numbers for you and have that answer for you right after for the Q&A. Got my calculator guy over there running. Yes. That is not. Sorry. Yes. The question was the pile that's the grayish colored material that is up in the other parking lot south of Sniffins. Is that related to the tidal flat area project? And it is not.
We'll give maybe 2 more questions for Brady, and then you guys can come up individually. Or, see. So you and
that's you, Brady. So we're clearly identifying West Bay, East Bay, even to the extent of putting the curtain up. I'm interested about this kind of river. Have you tested that? And is that the DEP approval criteria? Secondly, in putting in the curtain and doing all this work, and that's a lot of dredging, could you disrupt the Housatonic and the river to the extent that it could have some toxicity? And would that impact the lobsters and Ocean Bay and swimming for families?
Sure. So I guess to start with that question, the turbidity controls that we have in place, right, with the sheet pile being a permanent barrier, sealed steel sheet pile wall, and then the turbidity curtains floating behind it, we wouldn't expect any sediment to be disrupted and coming out of this work area. So that is our goal, is to not have any turbid water come out of our work zone. That's why we have the monitors and everything else. So if we were to see that, we would have a stop work and reevaluate what we're doing. The turbidity controls, therefore, inside of the sheet pile would only allow for us. We wouldn't be affecting anything coming off of the work site, so therefore we wouldn't be affecting any regrading or redirection of the water of the actual Housatonic River. And what was the other part of the question? Sorry. Right. So the Army Corps Oh, sorry. The question was there any toxicity outside of the tidal flat area into the Housatonic River? So the Army Corps did, I think we have over 10,000 samples roughly in the area. So what was agreed upon as a part of the design, the decision document, was this work area. We are going to go out there in the next few weeks and take a few samples along all of our outer parameters to make sure we don't have any hot samples. If we do, that dredge limit will be expanded, but based on historical data, there have been clean samples, which was the reason for this shape you see up here.
One question. Now, this is being funded by Department of Defense. Department of Defense. Is funded secure on it?
Yes, it's actually
The question was, who is it funded by, which is the Army Corps, and the project has been funded by the Army Corps. Or, I'm sorry, by the Department of Defense.
Just maybe one more question.
Does the active installation of the steel pipe serve, obviously, active serve on? Are you using your turbine monitor that?
Yes. So even though it's kind of a primo part, the sheet pile is installed with our turbidity controls in place. So currently out there right now, we have our curtains in place. We have all of our monitors in place. The monitors were up before we started anything, so we can get historic data of what we typically see in these areas. We have a baseline, and that's what we're comparing to as we move forward.
So we'll go to the last slide real quick. So again, so the communication on this project is critical. Obviously, everyone's interested about what's going on. So after this, we have some people that are here. Again, if you're with the media or you'd like to speak to our PR group, Brian is right there. Pat Sullivan is right there. That's with Sullivan and Lashane. And so come up and talk to them. We have Ray Brigon and Kevin Neary here from Connecticut Deep. So if you have a question about how the process went run, how it will be overseen, please come up and talk to them. They'll probably be here for about a half an hour after. We also, let me see, well, obviously you can come up and talk to my friend Ted and I. Other Entact players, John, raise your hand. So that's John Achuri. He's running the Tidal Flats project. Brady's the overall project executive on the property. And we have the famous Robin in from Delaware, who is our regulatory expert. So she takes, this will be bad. She takes all the dumb and puts it so that everyone can understand it. And she's the smartest person on every call that we have. So we love having Robin here. She came up from Delaware today. So anyway, we have a site. So if you went and you were like, geez, I wonder what's going on, and you went to the Town of Stratford website, it will direct you to the former SAEPinfo.com website, which is our website. On that, we have all sorts of information on there. And I think the most important thing is we have the questions. So if you want to ask a question, we'll get back to you within the week on the question. And it's good because it's someone else might have the same question. So instead of us being on the phone talking to people about the same topic, it'll be great. We'll give one statement. If it's technical in nature, we'll have one of our technical people answer it. If it's not technical, Ted and I can probably work our way through it. But we'll usually get the technical person to answer. And that's pretty much it for us. Again, we'll be here. This has been taped. It'll probably go back up on the website. So if you missed it, or if your friend or someone wants to see it, you can do that. And again, as we figure out, we keep doing our remediation process, we keep bringing in our fill. We're going to come, I promise, with an idea to everybody. You'll see signs on the property pretty soon from CBRE. They're our real estate brokerage company. They're the largest brokerage company in the country, or in the world, actually. And we retain them to look into industrial use right now, because that's what the property is zoned for. But again, if you have any questions on that, you you'll figure out how to call me. So a lot of people have. But if you want to actually write it so other people can benefit from the answer, that would be great too. So, with that, we'd like to say thanks again. We always have a good next update, Mary. What do you think?
The next update, whenever there's new information to, right now, the project is going as, as the timeline that you've seen. So if you feel that we need to have another update, make sure we do that.
Like sometimes Mary will call me and say, "Hey, breaker key, there's a lot of people asking questions. Can you go see them?" And so, we went right over, gave a presentation, until everyone said shut up, and then I left. But anyway.
So maybe Entact would be just up to the front table.
Yeah.
In case if people have specific more questions.
Yeah.
Then they can basically answer them. I don't know if you can hear me guys.
I don't know if everyone heard Mary, but basically, Entact will be up here, the Deep will be up here, Ted and I will be up here, Sullivan and Lashane will be up here to answer any other questions if you guys have them. Thanks again for coming, and again, reach out. Mary's been great, the mayor's been terrific, and everyone, quite frankly, in Stratford has been great to us. So anything you guys need, please reach out to us. Thanks.